Lukey, got a great show for you today. It's all about live food. Life begets life and dead begets dead. Well, breaking all of this down, of course, you've got a normal amount of mycotoxin that's typical, aflatoxin, and where that could have remained just modest, where things are just natural. But what happens where somebody really is having material that's life colloid that gets broken down into and is an excrement, which is giving you this mycotoxin, which we'll talk about some today. Aflatoxin, where albumin is, it gets adducted out of the blood and held up more or less because it's sort of really hanging on to stuff that needs to be cleared away. It's indicative of some exposure where aflatoxin is, and approximately some months it could still be there, you see. So aflatoxin really could have quite a bit of a half-life where the body detoxification system is. And dead food, having lacked of any enzyme, of course, should see Quillen photography just to have a look. What's the difference between something which is live versus it's all cooked up and doesn't have any of this left of this plasma? So it's certainly food like that is inefficient, and aflatoxin breaks down from the colloid of that material that's consumed. I mean, then what happens where that is persistent over years, you see. So aflatoxin, I was just pointing this out where we've got our program today because we're talking about mycotoxin, and it's a neoplastin. It's really classified as a group of one carcinogen, sort of in the International Agency for Research, and it's a very strong link to hepatocellular neoplasm, carcinomas, and forms of liver neoplasm. It's a key toxin, of course, the aflatoxin. It's the most common toxin, aflatoxin A. It triggers neoplastic condition, and it's involved with severe direct damages to cellular mitochondria, primarily in the liver. Keep in your mind that it's a excrement of a non-ecological life colloid that's comes to be where the body is not of its proper good stead. So pistachio even and nut, where things are, could have quite a bit found where this toxin is. And the formation of DNA really otherwise, you've got enzymes which get metabolized by the liver, and you've got reactive epoxides which use a binding covalent sort of where your DNA is, and it creates sort of harmful byproduct of that, you see. So life food really is more enzymatically active and doesn't have all these heavy proteins and things in it, and it gives you the capacity to be able to clear away and get your blood really nice and hygienic. And plant food really is minimal where these mycotoxins are, and flesh, of course, could really easily be seen to aggregate for you to differentiate by terrain and anoxia, where your body hasn't kept its good stead. Tissue and blood kind of pleomorphed itself into a non-ecological life colloid, and then you've got excrement, and it's soiling up your blood. And of course, it's coming from wrong food eaten. Flesh, of course, is the most dangerous because you've got mycotoxin possibility there, aflatoxin B, orocotoxin A. All of these are formed where the bowel is, and if that's not moved properly, this is sort of really problematic. So mycotoxin always is contaminated relative where flesh will break down into, and it has all of that carryover contaminated substances where the animal would have had its food and cured, of course, where flesh is. You've got a mold growth where all of that flesh is itself. So looking under the microscope, you've got 1 million organisms per square centimetre relative. You might only have about 70 or something on your elbow, let's say. Okay. So you've got animal tissue. You've got pork, of course, and a lot of other animals as well. The flesh, all of that contributes to neoplastic condition risk, and certain it is observation shows such, of course. You've got mycotoxin like this nivalenol, or it's called DON, or you've got also zearalenone, it's called Z. And my food nutrition pattern, you just don't have any of that, okay? It's a basic thing that your blood picture doesn't show any signs of all of that mucoid type of toxin and excrement impacting the blood. It's strange to me why people haven't looked at their blood. I mean, that probably would be the most scientific thing you could ever look at, okay? So otherwise, you've got a lot of this mycotoxin contamination, how that happens where animal feed is, and you've got aspergillus and penicillin mold, these things that contaminate feed that livestock often could be consuming. So it's a carryover because you've got really that animal where the flesh is susceptible to some absorbedness of and retaining where that mycotoxin is. And so you've got mycotoxic residue in the transfer of that feed and edible tissue that including muscle, kidney, liver and fat that's consumed. So direct mold and growth and fungus sort of directly sort of could be found, of course, on a lot of the cured flesh where the surfaces of that, and in a bit of a ripened type of a process, particularly where you just have some uncontrolled condition within your own self in your gut. How's that going to be? So mycotoxin, that's the excrement of these non-ecological life colloid, truly have a potential for colon neoplasm. A mycotoxin that's found in flesh, of course, primarily and in cancer and neoplastic sort of research, it sort of indicates that you've got a contributedness of what that process is and things a bit more multiple caused, though we're talking today a bit about excrement that is mycotoxin, okay. So you've got this DON, this deoxynivalenol, and low doses of all of that really can have quite a bit of inflammatory types of disease. And zearalenone or Z is another mycotoxin which really can have disrupted your gut barrier and cause an imbalance where gut life colloid is. So it really does promote conditions where neoplastic condition could have developed. And studies show such, all right? Observation shows this. Look at your blood and have a look. But life begets life, and you should see blood where you have a good habit this way. Otherwise, a dead food habit has mycotoxin levels in the feces of its these non-ecological life colloid, and it really impacts neoplasm. So you've got several factors, of course, where flesh is that contributes to all sorts of neoplastic condition. You've got these heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons that all form where the flesh goes through some high temperature and things. You've also got heme iron and things, which is just a pigment there where the flesh is, and that gets broken down with the gut, but it does go to form nitrosamine compound, which also really impacts neoplastic condition. It's just like this is a food we're talking about today breaking down into mycotoxin, which really is not natural for us per se. So cooking flesh doesn't avoid anything much, but the charring, of course, or use of low temperature and minimizing all of that, it really is just maintaining not a proper diet where that is. I mean, live food, it should be more vegetable, grain, fruits and things, and those mitigate neoplasm. So processed flesh, well, we listen into the other podcasts and things, especially about what happens when you consume excessive protein. And so you've really got pathways where mycotoxin occurrence is, and you've got pharmacological evidence, of course, and the toxic effect that a lot of these mycotoxins have in your blood. It's really an association of mycotoxin exposure and the dead food dietary habit that you've had. And how about just considering to turn that around? You've got flesh, which could be, some 700 grams of raw weight, more or less, where a red flesh is consumed. Those are things that is going to be increasing neoplastic condition, where studies show that. So flesh is going to break down into orocotoxin A, aflatoxin, zearalenone, citrin, of course, petulin. I don't want to bore you, but you've just got excrement from a non-ecological life colloid. So low doses of that in contaminatedness, low doses where contaminatedness is, you've still got that there, like we talked about at the beginning of the program. It's going to just remain where things are until can it be broken down. And so you really have animals which could be particularly sensitive to more of these mycotoxins, and they're absorbing those at a bit of a high rate where the digestive tract could be for that animal. And it's just a life colloid transformativeness of things. And so you've got mycotoxin as a hazard, and it really, stem cell rejuvenation is really an effective protective agent guarding against all of that, you see. So there is a relation which we're talking about where the gut life colloid is and flesh consumption and colorectal types of conditions of neoplasm. And so it's a real influence, of course. I'm only just picking out some bits of tissue, but like in a story here. But otherwise, you've got a whole range of organs where, this has such a powerful effect. So stem cell rejuvenation really goes into the reasons behind neoplasm and why immunotherapy often is just failing. It's revealing, of course, how T cells and the immune system have neoplastic cell conditions which turn them on and off. And so you're looking into how your immune cells could no longer sort of be exhausted, which they are under flesh eating. You've got a beautiful awareness of applying whole band patterning more and identifying discovered sort of stress pathways. You've got a pathway which stresses the cells that are phagocytes, which clean things up. And when you've got immune complexes in excess, you've got this pathway, this TEX-PSR pathway, and it really is a cell-exhausted condition, you see. So normal cells really could be slowed where protein production is and stressed to have a maintained balance. And the enzyme system, this TEX-PSR enzymatic system, is what's telling the immune system whether it could function or not, you see. So stopping all the dead food consumption and learning what live food is and bringing this in, you're stopping all of that overload, and you're really leaving your immune cells more with strength versus, no, they're pretty weak. And, you've got to clear away that terrain and get the terrain better. Dead food really is a bit of a sediment that ferments and breaks down itself in the body and blood. And the effect of that, where it just starts to cause clumpedness and plaque, which could be impacting the nerve, and Alzheimer's and things like this, you see. So stem cell rejuvenation really blocks those key drivers of that TEX-PSR system that is the immune complex that with the immune cells sense that can have turned itself off, so it's not really responded. And you're assisting to get this turned around because you're going to start to clear up all that debris and get your blood more hygienic. So you're looking at protein where live food is, and you've got a protocol which you could follow for 42 days. And it's really you changing your terrain around and having cleaner blood. And this is protecting your thymus cells, your T cells, from having that toxic stress. And this jab cell rejuvenation targets that TEX-PSR system, clearing things up so nothing is now stopping your immune system from functioning. So life food nutrition itself really is rejuvenating, and otherwise you've got a fatty acid and fatty livers and things, and all of that disappears where you're on jab cell rejuvenation, you see. And you've got these conditions where the blood is really looking clean, and you've got the fibroblasts actually growth factor, which is really what's needed in this mechanism. Life food program and jab cell rejuvenation is targeting the immunity to come to be more normal of its function, and life food really combines more where you are, and you're going to have far less stress on the body so that your body is really more functional. So this is your ticket. Yes, it's the cleaner blood, good. It's enzymes that's breaking protein down, that's right. And this is how jab cell rejuvenation really has got its protocol. And otherwise, you've got this hormone, fibroblastic growth factor, which is produced, and that kicks everything off, you see. A live blood cell analysis is going to look and see whether your immune cells are active or not. And if your blood isn't hygienic, it could be just really very slow activity of those cells. So looking at the brain and liver communication, of course, you've drank what you chewed and chewed what you've drunk. And this is really regulating more your metabolism. You've eaten only more or less once a day, and you've given your body a chance to be able to fast. And so cystic fibrosis, where that could have been, and pancreas and liver and adrenal gland all gets a chance to have healed up and to have assisted your body to be more corrected. So otherwise, you've got a fatty liver disease. You're going to tell me that it's not affecting 40% of the global population? You don't think that's pretty severe? Got a lot of things out there, but what's all the cause form of all the scarring where that is in the pancreas and the liver? And what's the sudden changes where immune cells would have been, where you've got this fibroblastic enzymatic system, and this is effective. So it's your strong brain signaling through a direct action more on the liver, adjusting what you're eating every day, and your good nerve activity is really you brunnering, and you could learn about what brunnering is, meaning only eating once a day. So otherwise you've got, cholesterol, where this is, no, you've got less cholesterol, you've got less plaque, and it's really effective and more orderly, and it's really everything that you're doing is contributing more to what would be like on a 42-day life of nutritional fast, you see. So you're restoring your liver's function. So today, like what we're talking about is to clarify this fibroblast growth factor, 21, and targeting this where your brain really is playing a metabolic regulatory role. So if FGF21 really works with this glucagon-like protein 1 hormone and targets certain weight loss conditions like Vitex does, that was made from incredible plant-based hormones. So demonstrating sort of like you've got signal hormones which are produced outside the brain, and you've got major systematic effect for no longer sort of adipose tissue and those sorts of things getting laid down wrongfully. So otherwise, look, you've got effective therapeutics in jab cell rejuvenation. You've got really millions suffering at the moment from fatty liver disease. And this is really offering hope, more reversing liver damage and improving of a more long-term condition. So, you've got a flesh and bean and fat complex carb meal, which triggers somatostatin, which you could tune into other podcasts to learn more about this. But in that program, you could hear how that would have shut the pancreas and the stomach down, and life, where that is, can have not really had any rest much. And the stomach, of course, and the pancreas is much higher than your brain. And where the pancreas suffers, of course, the nerve does. So suffering of the more where high processed food could have been, that's just a sediment that would have been in your body. And what about that? Okay. So if you eat less of what that is, and what are you eating today? Can we be a bit honest? Of course, your diet might not want you to pass, and might not want to pass through you easy. So if you've got a bit of a challenge, honest, where constipatedness is, it's alternated with diarrhea. And how about being more monophasic and giving your pancreas a bit of a rest? So it's really otherwise sediment, sticking that all that you ate together, and so becoming conglomerated that it just passes out of you like a big, huge snake stool, or completely stuck mucousy stool that doesn't break apart where the water is, and it's going to sink or float. 70% of these people all end up with pouches, diverticuli, and when somebody gets into their 80s, they could have quite a bit of what that is. So live food diet really doesn't do any of that to you. It tweaks and causes your digestive system to really be healthy. And like the almond gouda that we make, it's incredible. You could be seeded more with things which implant. So at the age of 80, more at least 70% of the Western nations can have individually sort of people develop diverticulitis and or come to be a bit more jaundiced. And children, where the nativity is in the East, most are born jaundiced. In the West, half are born jaundiced. That clears up in about a month or something. You're looking at a condition which really is stone in the pancreas formed already. And it's not going to be too long where, of course, eventually you've got pouches of diverticulitis and things where children come to be adult. And pouches of that inflamed infectedness causing diverticulitis and challenges, it really is all healed up, you see, on a live food nutritional fast. So it is avoided all of that abdominal pain and the fever and nausea and serious symptoms where somebody would have stopped all that, you see. And you stick with live food and you heal up. And so dead food really, what we're talking about in this show is pretty exact. It's fairly much understood. The factors like where dead food is, you've got high protein, high fat, complex carbs, and obesity and underactivity. You've got to say that epigenetics and genetics really is a lack of methylation that's gone on where that food is. Where are you going to get methylation from with that food? No. Where are you going to get hydrolysis from where that food is? No. So they play a notable role. And if you're young and you're using, you've really not got that linkage to high processed, fiberless food. So it's fortunate that, nothing much is anything outdated. Of course, if you're avoiding unprocessed, uncooked food, maybe you should think about what's going on. Because if you've stopped eating life and everything is just dead, where's the enzyme in any of it, you see? So it really is where experts maybe not emphasizing the importance of enzyme. And what about fiber, where live food diet is? I mean, these are the things which really prevent complication. And so if you reduce the pressure on the colon, it lowers the risk of dysbiosis and things, and you stay more hydrated, you've got physical activity, and now you're really supporting of the health of your gut. So it's simple steps you can take by switching to more whole grain and adding more my food complete and letting go of the flesh and the legumes and incorporating more fruit and vegetable, which meets more a recommended 30 grams at least of fiber per day or something, you see. So while it's sustainable where lifestyle is changed, of course, you could manage ever more and prevent diverticulitis and maintain a longer and better vitality where your digestive tract is. And so wrapping things up, of course, you've really got your cells, of course, and they breathed once clean through light, like we said at the beginning. You've got enzymes that ever moved more free, of course, and you've got your blood that's staying clean. And it really is the revelation here in our podcast that if you're turning your blood to be more clean again, you don't have that aflatoxin that's bound to DNA, do you? And you've got the immune system standing upright again. Digestion becomes ever more your communication. And this is really how you're reversing disease. Yes? And it's what you're assimilating and what is going on that's a mutual lived assistance more where things are not a fighting. All right? And keep a rememberedness of what this is. We've got some great shows that will be coming up after this. I hope that you've learned a little bit more about live food. And like I said, it's really not a diet, but it's really the resurrection of all yourself through enzymes. Love you, Lukey, and love everybody. Catch up to you in a future show.